Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to another episode, live lesson, if you will, on BBR Productions channel for the YouTube. Everybody who writes, there's this moment in our head we go, where do we start? How do we get there? And what do we do? So tell me, can you tell me how to do it? Well, that's the thing. Today we are going to go over it. We're going to break down what's known as breaking down the three acts in a story. And today we're going to focus on Act One. Okay. There's a couple rules and standards that we're going to talk about, specifically what I teach and how I personally write my stories out when it's either a script for a movie or a television series, a book, even songs, poetry. Believe it or not, there is a formula to just writing shorthand as well. So today, what we're going to go over, we're going to go three commonalities or three rules that I live by of how my structure works. And by the way, this isn't technically my structure; it's something that's been there forever. And then we're going to go over the actual Act One and break it down into subsections and give you examples utilizing Hunger Games. So if you understand Hunger Games, this will be definitely a really good resource for you to say, "Oh yeah, I know that part. That's what that." Okay, and then I'm going to break down some examples of ideas and not standards per se, right? Not standards, but rules of thumbs you can utilize. So before we get started, as always, I'm Thomas J. Beleza. So please like, comment, and share this video along with subscribing for future content on how to be successful in your career, specifically the entertainment industry. Let's get right into the video. And again, if you have questions, let me know in the comments below. All right, so again, breaking down, how many times do you think I could say again? And again, and again. Breaking down the three acts in a story, we are, again, focusing on Act One. But before we get into Act One, what I am utilizing is known as the 27 chapters for a book in total technique, okay? Meaning every chapter represents a subsection of the acts broken down. So if there's three acts and each act has three sections, and then there's three subsections within each act, that's 27. So there's three acts, there's three sections within each act, and then there are three subsections within each of those sections. So what I'm saying is there are three sections to each act. Within each of those sections are three subsections, ultimately making 27. We can also look at them as scenes in a film or television series. So if you have a film, you have 27 scenes, and each scene is absolutely accomplishing these things, you know you're going to get through the movie. Now, a lot of times, and as we go through the acts, you'll see that you can pretty much get a lot of these things in with either visuals or maybe just a line, or just a combination of the two, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes you don't have to literally focus your attention to be like, tell the people what the world is, right? Okay. However, once you understand these sections and these subsections, you can expand them, or look at the chapters. For example, so I don't write my books with 27 chapters. I don't say, all right, I need 27 chapters. Each chapter is going to be this beat, right? A beat. Each beat would be a subsection. It won't have these. It'll have a beat per chapter. I don't do that. What I do is I map out these subsections and I say I need these things to happen, but I might take two chapters or three or four chapters. It doesn't matter. It's up to you. And the reason is because for me, in a novel, in a book, I make chapter breaks basically a change in direction. So if the narrative moves, like I like ending not just the scene. Like I could have three or four scenes, as long as those scenes represent that beat. I'll leave that in that chapter. Sometimes, so for example, setting up Ordinary World, that might be a chapter long. It might be. But I might want to set up something bigger than just the world. I might want to set up something beyond the world and fill up the characters' motivations before they even learn of what's to come in the inciting incident, right? And the inciting incident, you could break it up. For example, let's say something's happening. There could be a chapter leading to the inciting incident, and then there could be a chapter that is the inciting incident, and then there could be a chapter that happened, what's happening after the inciting incident started, right? And that's three chapters just for the inciting incident. It just depends on how you want to approach it. And again, that's once you understand how the rules work, you can play with it. So let's get started. Gotta hydrate that mouth, right? Woo! Make sure the red light is on. All right. The first section, okay, of Act 1 is known as Introduce the Protagonist's World as Is. The second section of Act 1 is Problem Disrupts the Protagonist's Life. And the third section is Protagonist's Life Changes. This is all Act 1. Let's focus on the first section of Act 1. Introduce the protagonist's world as is. Before we go any further, protagonist is the person who is literally pushing the story forward because either the story elevates them and inspires them to move forward, which is usually a passive character, or an active character, an active protagonist would be somebody that is making the story. They're making choices to make the story go forward. And by the way, a villain could be a protagonist. Why? Because if the story is in their point of view, even though they might be quote unquote villainous, they would be the protagonist. The antagonist would then be the hero, quote unquote, right? So your protagonist is always the person that is necessarily being pulled along by the story and or pushing the story along, okay? Now, obviously, they could be incited, thus an inciting incident, to do something, but it is ultimately from their perspective, right? And I'm not saying first person or third person. I'm just saying that the story is about their evolution or the people in their lives directly around them. Because sometimes a hero, a protagonist, does not change. At the end of the story, they're basically the same character, but the world around them changed, okay? So like Captain America is a good example of that. Captain America doesn't really change per se over the course of the movies, but the world around him changes, and it's always his perspective. Anyway, so the first section of Act 1 is known as Introduce the Protagonist's World as Is. And then we break down that section into 3 subsections, okay? We want to set up ordinary world. We want to add the inciting incident, and then we want to react to it. We want to react to the inciting incident, all right? So for an example, if you look at Hunger Games, okay? They may not have 27 chapters. They may have more chapters, whatever the case may be, but they're still following this breakdown. And this is how you can see it within the book, okay? So setting up the ordinary world, something we learn in that book is that in the Hunger Games, they live in a dystopian world and they mention the reaping. They go, oh, there's a reaping, you know, and like we learn that's what they do in this world. There's a reaping and the world is terrible. They're hungry. Katniss has to hunt to survive because the food is terrible, right? They need food. So that's their ordinary world, okay? Now, they do it in a couple ways, right? We see her hunting. They have a couple little conversations. You can see they're not living very well. And then they're like, the reaping is coming. What are we going to do when the reaping comes, right? So that's setting up the ordinary world. But again, you can literally have their world pushing forward without them physically talking about it, right? Again, if she was just hunting to hunt and, you know, oh, someone's like, oh, thank God, we can finally eat. It's been 3 days or a week or whatever. You just did it without having to go, hey, by the way, our world is terrible. We're controlled by the capitalists or whatever, et cetera, et cetera. So there's ways around heavy exposition too. All right, then the inciting incident is also in this first section, okay? By the way, again, remember 27 chapters. If you're basing it off of that rule, setting up ordinary world would ultimately be a chapter. And if you read Hunger Games, that first chapter is all about that world. The second chapter is the inciting incident. Katniss volunteers for the sister. Basically, the story doesn't happen if she doesn't do it. If she doesn't go, no, not my sister, me, we wouldn't have Hunger Games. But more importantly, she wouldn't get to the games. More importantly, she wouldn't win the games. More importantly, she wouldn't incite the rebellion. More important, you know what I'm saying? So the inciting incident does more than pushes the character to move forward. It has to be something that makes, if this character was not involved in the evolution of growth because of this one little moment, there's no inciting incident. I think I made a reference to that. Like, imagine you were in a car accident, but every day you got up, you ate your breakfast, you got dressed, you went to work, you came home from work, you ate your dinner, you watched some TV, you went to bed, and that was literally your life every single day, right? Except for the weekends, maybe you have a barbecue, right? And then one day on your way to work, you get hit by a car, You get into a car accident and you're late for work, and that's your inciting incident because it changes your whole world. But it turns out the person who crashed into you is actually a long lost sibling that you didn't know have, and you realize you have parents and you were adopted, and your real parents are about to die that you didn't know about, and they're leaving their fortune to you. And the sibling was like, "You're older, and you're the all the money. If I kill you, then I get all the money." Inciting incident, right? The whole world's going to change. Anyway, so chapter 1 would be setting up the world. Chapter 2 would be inciting incident. Chapter 3 of the first section of Act 1 would be reaction to the inciting incident. Basically, she says, "I will take the place of my sister. I volunteer as tribute." This leads to her saying goodbye to her friends and family before leaving for the games. And there you go. You get your first 3 chapters or your first 3 scenes. In a film, though, like setting up the ordinary world, there's a few scenes. There's her hunting, there's her hanging out with the guy, there's her talking to a family. So you could have multiple scenes. But what I'm talking about is this setting up the world should be basically a good, strong beat. But when it comes to film, you really think Act 1 is about 25% of your total runtime, give or take. All right. So once you utilize this first section in Act 1, now we jump to the second section of Act 1, which is also broken up into 3 chapters. Again, this is just for writing a novel, but I will show you how to utilize it in television writing and also film. Okay. So the second section is problem disrupts the protagonist's life. All right. Now that the inciting incident happened, and then you have to leave that world, right? You get pushed into. You're like, this is terrible that this is happening. And for an example, the first section, the first part is the subsection is reacts and reflects on long-term impact of it. So basically, Katniss reflects on, if she dies, how will my family deal with my death? How will my friends deal? How will my community deal? So it's really her mulling over, like, oh, I just said yes to volunteering to this thing. But what about the people I care about? If I'm not there, I hunt for them. I protect them, whatever. All right. The next subsection in section 2 of Act 1 is protagonist decides to take action. And this is her first steps to win. Basically, she wins over the crowd. This is where she's like, all right, you know what? If I die, I wouldn't even know what to do with my family. I would feel bad for them. So I need to win. If I win, I'll get home to see them. So I'm making a choice to win this game. That's ultimately what that is. All right. So basically, and by the way, the character doesn't have to decide to take action. They could be forced into action. And again, that's the difference between a passive and an active protagonist. The story might push them into, for example, sometimes if you're watching a movie or reading a book, like the character's like, I don't want to leave, I refuse to, and then like literally their mom and dad die, their town gets blown up, they get taken into a prison, so they have no other choice other than to decide to take action. The action is that they have to leave the inciting incident. They react, oh my God, I lost my place. Oh my God, I'm in prison. What am I going to do? And then somebody's like, we're going to escape. And they're like, you're not going to escape. So like in Pirates of the Caribbean, the Curse of the Black Pearl, whatever, the Curse of the Black Pearl. Technically, Will is like the protagonist in that. But Jack Sparrow is in a cage. And he can't get out. They gave him walls. So then Will comes and goes, hey, I'll help you. So Will is the active, and Sparrow is just passive. He's just like, I'm going to go along with it. But as he finds out things, he's like, oh, this is working out for my benefit. So the world around him is creating this activeness in him. Whereas before he was just like, I just need to get out of this cell. Okay. Anyway, so the third subsection in the second section of Act 1 is immediate consequences of taking action. So the conversation with Haymitch and the rebellion, basically like, oh my God, this is crazy. I got to do this. You were a champion. What do I do? And then this talk of rebellion. So ultimately, because she chooses to be like, I'm going to win, and the crowd loves her, Haymitch is like, the crowd loves you. We have something here. They want you to win. They're listening to you. you could do something with that. And she's like, rebellion would be hard and difficult and terrible. All right. Moving on to the third section, okay, of Act 1. And then this is the first subsection of the third section, okay? So the third section is protagonist's life changes. So basically she's like, I'm in, the crowd loves me, so now I got to do something. And then we learn life changes due to the actions taken and creates pressure because she's like, well, the crowd loves me. I got to do this. This is a lot. Before I was just like, I'm going to just survive and get home to my family. Now it's the crowd loves you. And Haymitch is like, why don't, there's a potential for rebellion and you can control the crowd and you could do more than just win the games. And it's like, ah. So she's like, you know what? The hell with it. She shoots the arrow. Oh, wait. She shows her archery skills. She's like, oh, yeah? I got this. I ain't scared of anybody. Right? And then out of frustration, she shoots the arrow at the game makers and when they're at the practice, and she's like, oh, yeah, right? So basically, due to the action of realizing, wait a minute, the crowd loves me, and there's a lot of pressure, and it's like, yeah, I can do this. Look, I know how to shoot an arrow. And they're like, woo! And then she's like, the hell with you people. So then we get to the first pinch or B story or plot twist. By the way, a plot twist does not have to be a literal like, he was his brother all along. It doesn't have to be that. A plot twist could also be that the story itself changes. It just rotates differently. And it doesn't have to be a plot twist that like tricks the audience. It doesn't have to be a M. Night Shyamalan, where it's like, oh, what did we... Like, it doesn't have to be an actual twist. It could be something... It could just be like, for example, Predator has a good twist. It goes from being an action film to, oh, wait, we're in a horror, like a monster horror film. That's a twist. Okay? But anyway. Because, by the way, the reason, because the audience is in on it. We know there's an alien watching them from the beginning. We know, like, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. We get it. But the twist is that, like, wait a minute. It went from being an action film, like a straight up, like, stick around, where he throws this, to, I love Predator. That's a great movie. Okay. And third part is because of pinch, hero is pushed into a new world. All right. So let's talk about the first pinch real quick in B story or plot twist. Katniss receives a score of 11, which is completely unexpected, and that doesn't happen. So she's like, oh, what's going on here, right? That's a little crazy. So that actually leads because of that pinch or that twist, right? That would be a twist because it's something unexpected, but it isn't like, you're really a wizard, Because of that pinch, she gets pushed into a new world. What happens? They're like, oh, you got an 11. We're going to do an interview with you. And she does the interview with Caesar and before the games begin. And we also learn Peter declared his love for Katniss. Peter. Anyway, so again, if there are three sections in Act 1, okay, and each section has 3 subsections, we're going to get 27 chapters in a story as a standard. Like if you were just like, how do I just write beat per beat per beat? And that's a really good starting point for first-time writers that are just trying to learn their voice, trying to understand how plot works. Because if you just focus each chapter on these subsections, how do I get these things? And the chapter could be 10 pages, 15 pages. It doesn't have to be in like an R.R. Martin where it's like 60 pages, you know what I'm saying, per chapter. But if you were just like, all right, the first chapter, just try to set up the world. What is this world? There's no issues. This is just what they do. This is the everyday life. They go to work. They whatever. Okay. The second chapter is the inciting incident. The reaping actually takes place, which we've already set up in the ordinary world. And at the reaping, they're like, okay, this is the whole chapter. And then the sister gets called up, and she's like, no, I'm gonna be tribute. And it's just that, and that could be 15 pages, right? 10 pages. And then the reaction to that is now the next chapter, so just saying goodbye to everybody. So do you see how, if you understand how to utilize these just as one-shots, like each chapter, right here, this is 9 chapters you just wrote, right? And by the way, if you're plotting out your outline, this is how you would do it. You go setting up the world. I want to explain that in Katniss's world, they live in a dystopia. And by the way, the reaping. There's a reaping, and we need to hear about the reaping. We need to know about that. very important. It's part of their life. And then you go, all right, inciting incident. I know I need an inciting incident. What should it be? How about Katniss volunteers for tribute because her sister gets picked in the lotto, which is, by the way, a random lottery, right? And basically, that's it, right? And you just write that. You just write that inciting, and now you know, how do I get there? So you can expand on your outline by just going, all right, well, what are we going to do with this? Okay, all right, how do they do the lottery? Oh no, how does the sister get picked? A lottery. How do they do the lottery? And you just keep bullet pointing these things. This is how they do the lottery. This is how they stand. There's military there. There's makeup and fanciness, and they it's filmed world all over the right. So you just keep bullet pointing that. So all you need is a thought. Reaction to the inciting incident. She has to say goodbye to her friends and family before leaving the crowd for the games. And you say that is literally what I need to accomplish to react to the inciting incident in chapter 3. And then you just bullet point that. At first, you just start brainstorming the bullet points. Well, how does she say goodbye? Who's there? Who doesn't want to say goodbye because they're mad? What's the pressure to leave? Are they like, look, you only have this much time and you got to get out of here for the games? You just start writing those bullet points down. And then basically when you're writing, you look at your bullet points and you just go, all right, let me write to that bullet point, or let me add this element into a section. Okay. And then there's reaction and stuff like that. Same thing. Okay. So you just have to be focused on how to understand each chapter is just the thought. Reflects on if she dies, what will happen with her family. Okay. First steps to win. She wins the crowd over. How does she win the crowd over? What happens? Is there, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a really strong way to kind of just start out and really get your brain thinking. I need to set up the world. What's a line for, like a tagline for that? What do I need to accomplish for that? And as far as because of the what is the first pinch? Well, she receives a score of 11. It's unexpected. And you just write that down. All right, and then you bullet point them. All right. So before we move on, I'm going to explain and give samples of different mediums that you can utilize this 27 chapters concept. Okay. But as always, like, comment, and share this video to spread the love and power to everybody, because the idea is that we must work together to grow together, to rise together, and knowledge is power. That's why I do these free lesson videos on YouTube, because I just want it there for people to see and get your brain thinking. And remember to subscribe for future content on how to be successful in your career, especially if you're in the entertainment industry. All right, let's get to the final part of the video. Are we doing good with time? Okay. So in a book, this is literally what I just showed you is the first 9 chapters for Act 1. Act 2 would be another 9 chapters. Act 3 would be another 9 chapters. Now, again, just to be clear, you could probably get away with doing, instead of 9, you could do 6 chapters. And what you do is maybe this takes up 2 chapters, this takes up 2 chapters, this takes up 2 chapters. Because you could bring in the ordinary world well, allowing the ordinary world to lead into an inciting incident. And ultimately, she reacts to it and reflects on the long-term consequences in chapter 2. So just because I'm saying do the 27 chapters doesn't mean you have to. But once you understand how they work, you can start implementing these elements and combine chapters, right? But, you also want to create a breathing and a beat style. You want to let the story kind of like this happen. Okay, breathe, this happen. And readers can be like, oh, whew, okay, all right, now I know the world. I'm going to take a break. And then they read chapter 2 and they're like, whoa, the inciting incident. And then right? So you also think about how to pace your story with your readers, okay? In a film, Act 1 usually fills up 25% of runtime, all right? And Act 3 is usually 25%, and the Act 2 is usually 50% of the runtime. So ultimately, if it's, you got to think of that. If it's 90 minutes, it would be 15, 60, 15, right? So 15 minutes, 60 minutes, and 15 minutes. Anyway, a TV series. So there are different variations of episodes. So there's 8, 12, 18, and 23 episodes. The counts can be higher or lower than that, depending on the network. But again, these are not the standards, but just the rule of thumb for people who are just trying to understand how to write out these particular beats. These are 9 beats, by the way. So we know that the section we have to introduce the world. There's 3 beats in that. There's 3 beats in the problem disrupts the protagonist's life, and there's 3 beats in the protagonist's life's change. Now I'm going to go over in another video, Act 2, and break down those 9 beats, and Act 3 break down those 9 beats. But this is if we knew all 27 beats. All right. So if you have an 8-episode season, you can break it up into episodes and allow those episodes to breathe out. So the first 2 episodes would represent these 9 beats. You would have to get these 9 beats into the first 2 episodes. And again, remember, you could just show their world and create the inciting incident and their reaction to it, right? And they could reflect on it, and that's how the first episode ends. And then you got these 4 things. They decide to take action at the beginning. You could even make them decide to take action at the end of episode 1. And then we start up the immediate consequence, or we just watch the action take place, and then all these things happen. And you have to remember, play with it, right? The second act would be about 4 episodes, and the third act would be about 2 episodes, all right? If it was a 12-episode season, the first act would be about 3 episodes. The second act would be about 6 episodes. Third act would be about 3 episodes. All right, and so forth and so forth. 18 episodes would be, the first act would be about 5. The second act would be 8. The third would be 5. You see a pattern? 23 episodes. The first act would be over the course of 7 episodes. The second act would be over the course of 9 episodes, and the third act would be over 7 episodes. And why do we do this? Because, first of all, have you ever watched a season that has 23 episodes, and you're like, what does this episode have to do with anything? It literally is like this is literally like a content filler episode. Like, why do we care about this person's birthday or whatever? And that's what happens usually when you have like a 30-minute series or even an hour-long episode series, and they have 23 episodes. There's going to come an episode where they're like, well, what are we doing here? Let's explore this thing, right? However, you could take 7 episodes and explore these. Remember, I said that with the chapters too. Like sometimes I might take 3 chapters to explore the inciting incident. I'll take a chapter to lead up to the inciting incident. I will take a chapter of the inciting incident, and then I will take a chapter leading away from the inciting incident. And that's not including the reaction to it, because the reaction to it will be after they finally get away from the inciting incident. Now they have a chance to react to the exciting, like for example, let's say let's just a really general standard thing. Like, let's say an army's coming, okay, but you don't know the army's coming. The first chapter leading up to the inciting incident is that we see the army coming. We're like, oh my God, an army is coming, right? And they're preparing for it. They're getting ready for it. They're prepping whatever. If it's our time now, like if it's a present day, you know, they're loading up their guns. Or maybe you don't have any guns. Maybe like, what is this? What's going on? We have to find shelter. We have to find shelter. The actual inciting incident would be like, wait a minute, they are coming to our town. They're attacking us. Now we're in the depths of the inciting incident. We're being attacked. And we have to get out of here. We have to get out of the inciting incident. And we leave it. And once we're out of danger of the inciting incident, that's your getting out of the danger of the inciting incident would be the 3rd chapter. So I just did 3 chapters for the inciting incident. And now we could focus just 1 chapter on reacting to it. We don't have to do 3 chapters for the next beat, but just know the same thing with film is you can expand these concepts. So, you know, if you have 9, you could do 3. Look, let's say there's 7 episodes. You can literally do the first episode is just about setting up the world. Who are these people? What do they do? Right? Especially if it's not like a Friends, where basically you can start watching it at any time and be like, all right, I get it. There's 6 friends. They live in the city. They have jokes. All right. But if it's something like Breaking Bad, which the first season was 8 episodes. So if you watch the first season and you look at this, you might notice that the first 2 episodes are doing that. The first 2 episodes are doing this. They're setting up the ordinary world. For example, he's a nobody, though he had won he's really smart because he won a Nobel Prize. He had a company, Gray Matters, but now he has a family and he's a teacher. And even though he has power as a teacher and no one respects him as a teacher, but then he has a job where he has to be work at a car wash, and the students that he feels he has power over actually have power over him because now he's cleaning their car, literally washing their tires in the scene, right? And the inciting incident is that Hank is who's more beloved by his son. Hank is the uncle, and Hank is like revered by the main character's son, and he's just like, this is just, Walter's like, why does my son love this guy and not me as much? Like, I don't have his respect. And the inciting incident is the basically the drugs. Like they go out on the thing. If you haven't seen the show, I'm sorry, spoiler it, right? And he reacts to it and he reflects. He reflects on the inciting. He's like, I could do this. I think I could do this. So episode 2 is like, episode 2 kind of hits these 3 beats. But if you watch the first episode, a lot of stuff happens, right? The first episode, we end with them making meth. Like we see them making meth, and like they're driving the Winnebago, and it turns out he killed 2 people, right? So you can watch it, explore that way. But you could also do it in other ways. You could do whatever. It's up to you. You're allowed to do whatever you want. These are just guidelines. But 7 episodes, literally you could do like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So now you're like, oh, instead of 7, I'll do 5, and then I'll take 2 episodes and throw them to the act 2. Or you could be like, hey, I'm going to set up the world in 1. I'm going to put the inciting incident and the reaction in episode 2. Reflection on it will be 3. The protagonist decides to take action, but there's immediate consequences, will be 4. This will be 5, 6, and 7. Boom, done. Right? You could do whatever you want. So remember that you have the power to do it. There you go. Act 1. All right? Enjoy. You want to take a picture of that? Whatever. Doesn't matter. I love you guys. All right. That's it. I'm done. I'll see you next time. And please, questions, pop them in the comments below. Remember to be